Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Evolving Interests YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about manual steering conversions, specifically in the Del Sol platform, but this will also be covering the EG platform, whether it's coupe, hatch, or sedan, as well as the Integra platform because of that. Just a quick note, if you've been following the project and you're wondering where the uploads have been, I'm going to have a small little section at the end of the video talking about that. And for now, let's just get right into this. So firstly, I'd like to talk about why would you want to do a manual conversion. Power steering has obviously evolved for reasons, so there must be a better reason for why you'd want to go back. And truthfully, there are quite a few. First of all, the Honda power steering racks kind of just suck. When I first got this car, I had it parked and I turned the wheel, and for some reason that had caused it while it was sitting there for a few hours to completely dump all the fluid out of the system. I then had a car which I couldn't drive unless I wanted to destroy the power steering pump. Granted, it was an old rack and it did leak a little bit before, but I don't understand why it blew the entire seal out for that. But even brand new racks, if you're pushing them pretty hard, you're driving very spiritedly or at a track, you will pretty routinely blow out racks. Pretty much everybody online has had this common experience. The racks just don't last. Another thing is, it's pretty hard to find a good Honda power steering pump. They just don't really make good ones anymore. A lot of them are harder to find or really expensive. I mean, you're looking upwards of $300 for a good one, and then basic O'Reilly's one just doesn't work. When I put this engine swap in my car, I immediately went out because I wanted power steering, and I tried finding a good pump. I burned through 2 pumps basically right off the gate, even with correct bleeding procedures, and have had zero luck with them. The first one, I threw it in, bled it correctly, and then almost immediately I was having issues. It was whining. I didn't have any power steering until over 3,000 RPM. I immediately figured, maybe I got a bad one, so I bought another reman. This one was even worse. Okay, so I just went ahead and attempted to replace the power steering pump again. This is my second pump, and I had the car lifted up. I spun the wheel literally 25 minutes straight, left, right, and now that we're on the ground, you can hear it whining. I have no idea why. But basically I had no power steering right off this pump, and it whined and it grinded and it made all kinds of terrible noises. So the pumps that you can get on the market now are either really super overpriced or they're just not very good. This also kind of leads into, if you're doing a motor swap, power steering deletes help save some money. You don't have to source correct lines, you don't have to source correct pumps and different mounts. All kinds of engine combinations came with all kinds of different brackets for these pumps, so good luck trying to find the right one the first try. I sure didn't. And overall, the manual racks kind of give you just a better feel for spirited driving or track use. For daily use, this isn't something I'd really consider required, but if you're doing some spirited driving through canyons or on a track, a manual rack is going to help you out just a little bit. This is kind of a moot point. People like to argue that this is like the end-all be-all, like you need a manual rack. I don't feel like it's that big of a difference. There is a difference, but it's something you can live without if that's your only reason for wanting to swap it. Now, talking about the actual swaps themselves, there's things you can do and should do and things you shouldn't do. I'm very, very against the depowered rack in the method of just removing the lines and running a power steering rack without fluid in it, or even doing a fluid loop, which basically just loops the power steering lines. There's 2 reasons for this. First of all, you're still fighting fluid resistance, and that's already giving you a worse experience than just a traditional manual rack because you're now fighting the weight of the car and the fluid resistance. Plus, power steering racks are geared to be designed to have some kind of assistance. So the engineers thought, okay, there's going to be fluid pushing this as well, so we can gear it down to make the steering wheel easier to move. If you just depower the rack, you're losing that assistance, and your gear ratio is not going to be as good as a manual rack. These manual racks have basically built to multiply the torque of turning the wheel, so you have a better experience. You're losing all of that when you do a loop system or something like that. And so for those 2 reasons, you're honestly just worse off. You're getting all the cons with basically none of the pros. So I'd highly recommend, if you're planning to do this, to do an actual manual conversion with a real manual rack. I'm going to include a segment here, and we're just going to go through how it's not super in-depth, but this is a basic overview of how you're going to do it. Inside the car, you want to disconnect your little joint here on your steering shaft. A little hard to show you, but that does go up in here. In front of that, you're going to have this plastic piece that sits like this, and you have 2 clips. One in the middle, it's a larger clip, one at the top, it's a smaller clip, and you'll just have a plastic little clip holding this to the floor. So you want to remove all of those, undo your joint. Okay, so with the car jacked up, you'll want to remove the wheel. Then we're going to be pulling the outer tie rod off. This is going to sit in here just like this, screw into your inner tie rod on your power steering rack. There should be about a 17 on the bottom, and then hammer on the outside while lifting up, and it'll pull this out, and then after you'll just spin it off. I did this after the steering shaft was already disconnected, and I've already gone ahead and removed the wheels and everything, but the power steering rack is going to have a couple lines that'll be sitting right back here. I've already swapped it over to the manual rack so you don't see that, but in this section you're going to have 3 lines. I still have the power rack and it is out of the car. It's going to be sitting something like this. You're just going to have the 3 here. I've also already actually gone and pulled the whole power steering system out minus 2 brackets. So all of everything is already gone. All the lines are taken out and everything as well, but those will be sitting in this area. So you have to kind of work around those, but make sure those are disconnected. And again, you have your shaft, those are going to be sitting right here in this area, just below your intake manifold. Under the car, it's pretty easy as well. We just have to remove the exhaust this way, as well as you will have to pull the header off also in order to get this power steering rack out. What I did is I just loosened the bolts up top and then pulled the whole thing forward only to about here. I didn't have to take it out of the car. And then you also have to remove both your shift linkages. And then the rack has 2 bolts up here, 2 bolts over here. Not sure how well you can see though, there's one here, one up there, and then 2 right here. After that, pretty much you'll just take the rack and physically twist it down so the shaft kind of goes like this, and then just kind of maneuver it. You want to push it out your passenger side. It'll actually come out through this wheel well. And then after a little bit, this front part will be able to clear. You'll just bring it down through this section and then out. Then the rack will come out. You won't have to remove the subframe or anything like that. It's really just that easy. Going back in, same thing, throw it in. Make sure you line up your thing. I still got to put the boot on up there, but just make sure that goes in there and then bolt it all back up. That's about where I'm at. After that's done, you're going to want to eyeball your alignment. Just try to get these as straight with the body as you can. You're going to have to get this professionally aligned, but just to get it to the shop, a little bit of too much camber or so is okay. Or sorry, that's toe. The way you adjust that is back here on your rack. There's a little spot. You can grab it with a wrench and twist it either in or out, and that'll pull the back end either in or push it out, which will affect how this sits in the wheel well like this. That'll hold, kind of push where your tires. After that, you're going to get it professionally aligned. And now that you've seen that, let's go ahead and do some road impressions. All right, here we are. The car started. I have to roll my window down because I still don't have my AC functioning, but that's something that will be coming, and I got to turn my shit off. My music cannot be heard. I've actually never been on this road before. I didn't even know it existed. So we're gonna take this for fun and see where it takes me. All right, so let's talk about power versus manual steering. Obviously, they're night and day. There's quite a lot of difference between the two, hence the reason why you'd want to do a swap or something like that. The manual rack does require a lot more input, as you'd expect. It is manual now, and you're not having any fluid input with that. But with the correct swap, like I mentioned, it's really not that bad. Just basic driving, I'd say anything around 30 miles an hour or so, you really won't be able to tell a difference, in my opinion. The manual rack is pretty smooth, and it doesn't require a whole lot of force once you're at speed. I might even bring that down. I'd say 20 miles an hour and over, you're not going to be able to tell a difference between the two. Now, one-handed driving, definitely a lot harder because, you know, you need your muscles, and 2 is better than 1, I guess. And if I were to do a quick turn or a turn at some relative speed that's pretty sharp, you will start to realize, okay, you know, you're definitely using your muscles instead of having some kind of assistance. So quicker turns, sharper turns, mostly just sharper turns, you will start to realize, okay, I'm definitely driving a manual rack. Even things like rolling through a light and taking a right, for example, you're going to realize a difference. It is honestly harder to drive that way, and you will be able to tell, okay, something's not quite the same. This is definitely requiring a lot more input. But as far as obviously straight lines, minor maneuvers on the road, something where you're going to take a curve, you're not going to be able to tell a difference between them at all. The worst thing and the hardest thing to do is get moving in a parking lot. Generally, you're going very low speed. There's almost always a lot of movement going on because you're rotating wheels quite a lot, especially backing out of spots. Oh, does not like that gear. Or backing into or out of spots, or parking into spots. That's kind of something that's pretty hard to do, in my opinion. The easiest thing I can say with that is to get yourself rolling a little bit, and from there you basically won't have any issue. All right, road feel. So honestly, I've noticed this rack is a little bit touchier. Like when you do a slight turn, your car moves quicker than it would if it was an automatic rack. I don't know if that's all in my head or if it's reality, but it does feel to be a little bit more connected to the road. You do notice bumps and things a little bit more in your steering wheel. But overall, like, I feel like it's pretty similar. I don't feel like the people that hype up the driving feel, I don't feel like they really have as much of a point as they think they do. Alright, so now you know what I think about manual conversions in Honda Del Sols as well as the EG platform. Hopefully this video is informative, and if you're planning to do this, gave you some better information on how or what not to do. Overall, I just want to do a quick little cover of this, as there's a whole lot of information out there. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but the videos on this topic are pretty few and far between, and the information's honestly pretty bad in my opinion, other than the actual tutorials on how to do it. If you're not interested in what I have to say at the end of the video regarding this project, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day. If you are interested in seeing what kind of the background of the project and where it's been for the last couple months is, well, welcome to it. I'd just like to say that the reason this car hasn't been worked on or uploaded about is because I've had some significant life changes. I quit my job as a mechanic, plain and simple. My reasons for that, mainly just because the job's extremely stressful. It doesn't seem like it should be, but there's a lot that goes into it that makes it a pretty hard job to do. First of all, my biggest issue was the pay structure. That really caused a lot of stress, as well as having to work with coworkers that directly impacted that, not knowing what they were doing. That made a huge issue with my job as well. And then you've got all the other minor worries of with the customers and the repairs quality and all that stuff. So overall, there were just a lot of things that kind of contributed to me not wanting to do this anymore. And because of this, I'm working in cars day in and day out. I was really getting burned out, and I actually started to hate working on them. So basically, after I quit, I swapped the manual rack, which is what you're seeing now. This was actually done about 3 months ago, and put it in so I could go to a car show, got it aligned, and then I quit working on it. This car did not move for almost exactly 3 months. I didn't touch it, I didn't work on it, I didn't really talk about it. It just sat there doing absolutely nothing for 3 months. Now I'm starting to get back into the groove of it. I just swapped some coilovers. I want to do a video on those as well, and did the manual steering rack, and I've put about 400 miles on it since that last video, but almost probably 250 to 300 have been in this last couple weeks. So I'm really driving the car again now, so I'd expect more stuff now. I don't have a problem with working on the ground on my hands and knees and stuff like that, but I just haven't been in the mood. It honestly felt like torture to come work on this thing, but I'm finally getting out of that slump, so I will be making content again soon. Thank you for sticking with me and viewing this video. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.